Christopher Columbus's first voyage, Unveiling the Unknown. It is easy to discover what another has discovered before. Christopher Columbus. Introduction. The dawn of exploration. In the annals of history, few names evoke as much curiosity and controversy as Christopher Columbus. Born in Genoa, Italy, around 1451, Columbus was a visionary explorer whose indomitable spirit and quest for adventure led him to the forefront of the age of discovery. However, it was his fateful journey in 1492 that etched his name in the pages of history. Columbus's first expedition, funded by the Spanish crown, would become a watershed moment, unveiling a new world and forever altering the trajectory of human civilization. As we embark on this historical exploration, we peel back the layers of time to reveal the man, his motivations, and the profound significance of the voyage that laid the foundation for a new era of global interconnectedness. Background. A world in flux. As Christopher Columbus envisioned his daring expedition in 1492, the world around him was undergoing a profound transformation. The late 15th century was marked by the Renaissance, a cultural revival that ignited a fervor for knowledge, exploration, and innovation across Europe. This intellectual awakening, coupled with economic incentives, fueled a growing interest in finding alternative trade routes to the riches of Asia, particularly circumventing the Ottoman Empire's monopolistic control. Misconceptions about the world's geography were prevalent during this era. Ptolemaic maps, based on ancient Greek theories, dominated scholarly understanding, portraying a world where the Indian Ocean was thought to be much smaller than reality. Columbus, however, embraced alternative theories, including those of Marinus of Tyre and Claudius Ptolemy, which hinted at the possibility of reaching Asia by sailing westward. The allure of newfound wealth and the desire to spread Christianity further motivated Columbus. Spain, under the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella, saw the expedition as an opportunity to expand their influence, gain a competitive edge in trade, and spread Christianity to distant lands. In this backdrop of intellectual ferment, economic incentives, and religious fervor, Christopher Columbus set the stage for a voyage that would transcend its initial commercial and diplomatic ambitions, becoming a seminal event in the history of exploration. The prevailing knowledge and misconceptions of the time would shape his audacious plan to sail westward into the unknown, leading to a journey that would redefine the known world. Preparations. Navigating challenges and assembling a crew. Christopher Columbus's preparations for his ambitious voyage were marked by relentless determination, diplomatic maneuvering, and an unwavering belief in his vision. Securing sponsorship and support for such an unprecedented expedition proved to be a Herculean task. Facing skepticism from potential sponsors in his native Genoa, Columbus turned to the courts of Portugal, England, and finally, Spain. After years of persistent lobbying, he secured the backing of King Ferdinand II of Aragon and Queen Isabella I of Castile in 1492. The Spanish monarchs, motivated by the promise of new trade routes, potential riches, and the spread of Christianity, provided the necessary funding for Columbus's endeavor. Assembling a crew posed its own set of challenges. Skepticism about the feasibility of Columbus's westward route to Asia deterred many experienced sailors from joining the expedition. To address this, Columbus utilized his persuasive skills and the allure of potential wealth and fame to recruit a crew. Many of the sailors were enticed by the prospect of discovering new lands and securing their place in history. The composition of the crew was diverse, comprising sailors, navigators, and interpreters. Columbus deliberately selected men with various skills to ensure the success of the expedition. However, maintaining discipline and morale during the voyage proved challenging, as the crew faced the uncertainty of traversing uncharted waters and the prolonged duration of the journey. The procurement of supplies posed yet another obstacle. Columbus had to secure provisions for an extended voyage, and convincing suppliers to invest in an uncertain venture was no easy feat. He faced shortages of essential resources like food and fresh water, which heightened tensions among the crew during the journey. Columbus also had to grapple with the technological limitations of the time. Navigational instruments were rudimentary, and accurate maps were scarce. Yet, Columbus's unwavering conviction in his calculations, derived from flawed estimates of the Earth's size, propelled the expedition forward. In the face of financial and logistical challenges, Columbus's meticulous planning and persuasive abilities ultimately culminated in the historic departure of the expedition in August 1492. The preparations, marked by diplomatic struggles, recruitment hurdles, and resource shortages, underscored the audacity of Columbus's vision and the monumental nature of the journey that lay ahead. The voyage itself. Across the uncharted seas. Chronology. August 3, 1492, the Santa Maria, Pinta, and Nina set sail from Palos de la Frontera, Spain, under the command of Christopher Columbus. The crew, consisting of sailors, interpreters, and adventurers, embarked on an unprecedented journey into the unknown. September 6, 1492, as the expedition sailed westward across the Atlantic, the crew encountered the vast Sargasso Sea, a challenging navigational hazard known for its dense seaweed. This obstacle tested the resolve of the crew and strained the limited resources on board. September 14, 1492, the crew faced growing anxiety as weeks passed with no sight of land. The morale dipped, and whispers of mutiny circulated among the sailors. Columbus, however, maintained an optimistic demeanor, assuring them that land was imminent. October 12, 1492, land was sighted, marking a pivotal moment in the expedition. The crew, weary and uncertain, rejoiced as they stepped onto the shores of an island in the present-day Bahamas. This event, now celebrated as Columbus Day, was a turning point that validated Columbus's theories and boosted the morale of the crew. November 3, 1492, the fleet reached Cuba and later Hispaniola, modern-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The Santa Maria faced a critical setback when it ran aground and was lost, forcing Columbus to leave some crew behind and return to Spain with the remaining 2 ships. February 15, 1493, the Nina and Pinta returned to Spain, completing the first transatlantic crossing. Despite the challenges, Columbus's voyage had opened a new chapter in exploration. Navigation techniques. Stars, dead reckoning, and the compass. Columbus relied on a combination of navigational techniques, albeit with limitations given the tools available in the 15th century. The crew used the North Star and other celestial bodies for navigation. By observing the angle of the stars above the horizon, navigators could estimate their latitude. Dead reckoning, a method where the navigator estimated the ship's current position based on a previously known position, heading, and speed, was crucial during overcast skies or when celestial observations were impossible. The magnetic compass, a relatively recent introduction to European navigation, aided in determining the ship's direction. However, the compass was susceptible to magnetic anomalies, and inaccuracies could arise. Columbus also employed a rudimentary astrolabe, an instrument used to measure the angle between a celestial body and the horizon, helping to determine latitude. However, these instruments were far less advanced than contemporary navigation tools. Despite the challenges and limited technology, Columbus's navigation techniques, coupled with his unwavering determination, guided the expedition safely across the Atlantic and laid the groundwork for future maritime exploration. The voyage showcased a blend of traditional seamanship, celestial navigation, and innovative thinking that marked the beginning of a new era of global exploration. Arrival. The encounter with the New World. October 12, 1492, the early morning mist gave way to the sight of a paradisiacal island, marking Christopher Columbus's first encounter with the New World. The crew, weary from weeks of uncertainty, erupted in joy as they stepped onto the shores of an island in the present-day Bahamas. This moment, unbeknownst to them, would alter the course of history and reshape the world's geopolitical landscape. The indigenous people Columbus and his crew encountered were the Taino, a Native American people. Initially, the Taino perceived the Europeans as otherworldly beings, possibly returning from the heavens. Their hospitality and curiosity set the tone for the initial interactions. Gifts were exchanged, and a tentative understanding emerged through gestures and basic communication. Columbus, driven by a mix of curiosity, ambition, and the desire to fulfill his mission, embarked on subsequent voyages to explore the surrounding islands, including Cuba and Hispaniola. However, as exploration expanded, so did tensions. Misunderstandings arose, and the cultural divide became apparent. The initial exchanges, marked by curiosity and tentative cooperation, eventually gave way to the clash of two worlds with vastly different ways of life. Impact of the discovery on European perceptions. Columbus's discovery had a profound impact on European perceptions of the world. News of the New World spread rapidly across Europe, sparking both fascination and skepticism. The notion that there were vast, uncharted lands beyond the known world challenged traditional beliefs and spurred a re-evaluation of geographical and cosmological understandings. The discovery fueled European ambitions for further exploration, conquest, and colonization. It opened the floodgates for subsequent expeditions, transforming the age of discovery into an era of unparalleled expansion. European powers, now armed with the knowledge that there were continents yet to be claimed, raced to establish overseas empires, forever altering the global balance of power. Additionally, the discovery reshaped cultural perceptions. Exotic goods, flora, and fauna from the New World flooded European markets, creating a demand for previously unknown products. This exchange, known as the Columbian Exchange, had far-reaching consequences, impacting diets, economies, and societies on both sides of the Atlantic. However, it is crucial to acknowledge the darker side of this encounter. The influx of Europeans into the Americas brought about devastating consequences for the indigenous populations, including diseases, exploitation, and cultural disruption. The collision of these two worlds, with their contrasting perspectives and technologies, left an indelible mark on the course of history, forever altering the interconnectedness of human societies. The arrival of Columbus in the New World stands as a pivotal moment that shaped the contours of a globalized world. Controversies and Legacy. A tangled web. Christopher Columbus's actions during and after his first expedition have long been shrouded in controversy. Criticisms primarily revolve around the treatment of indigenous populations. Reports of forced labor, violence, and the spread of diseases brought by the Europeans paint a grim picture of the encounter. The colonization that ensued led to the subjugation and exploitation of native peoples, altering their cultures irreversibly. Controversies surrounding Columbus's actions. Accusations of tyranny and cruelty directed at Columbus sparked debates even during his lifetime. The mistreatment of the Taino people in Hispaniola and other Caribbean islands fueled a legacy of resentment against Columbus. His governance strategies, including the encomienda system, contributed to the suffering of indigenous communities and set a precedent for subsequent European colonization. Consequences and long-term legacy. Columbus's voyage had far-reaching consequences that extended beyond his initial encounters in the Caribbean. The exploration, trade, and colonization that followed shaped the world in ways both profound and problematic. The Columbian Exchange. The exchange of plants, animals, and cultures between the Old and New Worlds, known as the Columbian Exchange, transformed global economies, diets, and societies. While it facilitated cultural diffusion, it also brought devastating diseases to the Americas, decimating indigenous populations. European expansion. Columbus's voyage paved the way for European powers to establish vast empires in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The quest for riches, resources, and religious conversion drove colonization, often at the expense of indigenous peoples. Cultural and technological impact. The encounter between Europe and the Americas sparked a two-way transfer of knowledge and technology. While Europeans introduced new crops, animals, and technologies to the Americas, they also adopted indigenous agricultural practices and products. Global exploration. Columbus's successful voyage inspired subsequent explorers, such as Amerigo Vespucci, Ferdinand Magellan, and John Cabot, further expanding the known world. The era of global exploration ushered in an age of unparalleled maritime activity, shaping the geopolitical landscape for centuries to come. Legacy and modern perspective. Columbus's legacy is a complex tapestry, viewed differently across cultures and time periods. In many Western societies, he was once celebrated as a hero and pioneer. However, as awareness of the negative consequences of colonization grew, especially concerning the mistreatment of indigenous populations, the perception of Columbus began to shift. In recent years, calls to reassess Columbus's legacy have gained momentum. Indigenous peoples and their allies argue for a more nuanced understanding of history, acknowledging the atrocities committed during and after Columbus's expeditions. Some places have replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, emphasizing a more inclusive and accurate reflection on the impact of European colonization on native populations. In conclusion, the controversies surrounding Columbus's actions and the enduring legacy of his voyage underscore the complexities of exploration and colonization. While his journey expanded the known world and initiated a new era of global interconnectedness, it also left a trail of exploitation, suffering, and cultural upheaval, a legacy that continues to shape discussions on historical responsibility and the consequences of exploration. Lesser-known details. Untold stories of the expedition. These lesser-known details add layers to the narrative of Columbus's first expedition, revealing the human aspects, scientific challenges, and cultural encounters that shaped this historic journey beyond the commonly known milestones. Columbus's celestial deception. During the voyage, Columbus faced the challenge of maintaining crew morale as weeks passed without sighting land. Desperate to reassure his crew, he kept two sets of logbooks, one with the actual distances traveled and another, doctored version showing shorter distances. This clever deception helped prevent mutiny among increasingly anxious sailors. Navigating by the stars. Contrary to popular belief, Columbus did not rely solely on his calculations and the compass. The quadrant and astrolabe, instruments used for celestial navigation, played a crucial role. Columbus, with the help of his skilled astronomers, regularly observed the positions of stars and used their angles above the horizon to estimate the ship's latitude. The mysterious lights. One night during the voyage, the crew reported seeing strange lights moving in the water. Columbus, well aware of the sailors' superstitions, attributed the phenomenon to the presence of unknown marine life. This encounter, likely a sighting of bioluminescent organisms, added to the crew's sense of wonder and trepidation in the uncharted waters. Columbus's vision of a unique earthly paradise. Columbus, influenced by medieval Mappa Mundi, world maps, believed in the existence of earthly paradises. He thought he might discover the Garden of Eden or the fabled city of Cipangu, Japan. This quest for mythical lands added an element of romanticism to his journey, driving him forward in search of the unknown. Indigenous impressions of Columbus. The indigenous people encountered by Columbus had their own perceptions of the strange visitors. Some believed the Europeans were divine or supernatural beings, while others viewed them as potential trading partners. The initial interactions were marked by curiosity and cultural exchanges, offering a glimpse into the complexities of cross-cultural encounters. A lunar eclipse saves the day. On February 29, 1504, during his fourth and final voyage, Columbus found himself stranded on the island of Jamaica. Facing hostility from the locals and dwindling supplies, Columbus consulted an almanac and predicted a lunar eclipse. When the eclipse occurred as he had foretold, the indigenous people, impressed by this celestial mastery, agreed to provide provisions, saving the stranded crew. The Pinzon brothers' role. The voyage was not a solo endeavor for Columbus. The Pinzon brothers, Martín Alonso and Vicente Yanez, played crucial roles in its success. Their navigational expertise, financial support, and leadership skills were instrumental. However, tensions arose, and the brothers' contributions have been overshadowed by historical controversies surrounding their relationships with Columbus. Columbus's miscalculation of distance. Columbus's estimate of the Earth's circumference was significantly smaller than its actual size. He believed that Asia was much closer than it was, leading to his expectation of reaching land sooner. This miscalculation intensified the crew's anxiety as the weeks at sea stretched on, and land remained elusive. Conclusion. Navigating history's waters. Christopher Columbus's 1492 expedition epitomizes a pivotal chapter in human exploration, weaving together ambition, challenges, and lasting legacies. The voyage, born in the Renaissance spirit, faced hurdles in sponsorship, crew assembly, and supplies, but sailed forth under Columbus's indomitable determination. The perilous journey across uncharted seas showcased Columbus's navigation prowess, blending celestial observations and rudimentary instruments. The arrival in the New World marked a transformative moment, initiating an era of exploration and the Columbian exchange. However, controversies surround Columbus's actions, notably the mistreatment of indigenous peoples, prompting modern re-evaluation of his legacy. The expedition's impact on European perceptions, global exploration, and the enduring consequences of colonization resonate across centuries. In history's annals, Columbus's first voyage remains a symbol of human audacity and cultural interconnectedness, its impact extending far beyond the moment of discovery. While acknowledging complexities, this historical episode offers profound insights into the intersections of ambition, discovery, and the human experience.